Hello, my name is Wes Adams, here to present a short video on some of the features of the CoreTechSolutions customer and tenant web portal for Sage Intacct and Sage Intacct Real Estate. Further information can be provided if you want to do a deeper dive into some of these features. So this will be a very quick video. I'm going to start with saying that this platform syncs with both Sage Intacct and Sage Intacct Real Estate. We deploy smart events and platform triggers to keep this portal platform up to date with all the data that's in Sage Intacct and Sage Intacct Real Estate in real time. I'm going to start with the dashboards and reporting. So we have dashboard reports, pulling data. In this case, this is for real estate. We can add as many dashboards as needed, and they can be customized as well. So these are lease deposits, lease count type reports, service requests by status and property, and then by property. Seeing all kinds of details, occupancy status by property. We also have dashboards for receivables and payments. Real estate management is where we show data as it relates to Sage Intacct Real Estate. So we have a property center area where we can see all the properties that we have activated or locations, Sage Intacct entities. So we're showing only those properties or entities that we have turned on. Drilling down into these properties, you can see some data on units, see meter type information, utility meters, that's data stored in Intacct Real Estate. We can see a list of the tenants that are on this property. We can see leases and agreements on this property. And we can see we can do announcements to all tenants in a building or for this property. So for example, I'm going to send to all tenants in this property. We're going to be paving the parking lot on the 31st through the 2nd. Whatever you want to send. If you need to upload a file for this announcement, maybe it's a newsletter, you could do that as well. I'm just going to click send here. And that will go out to all of your tenants that we selected in that announcement. Drilling down into the resident center. So residents in real estate are the same thing as customers or tenants in Sage Intacct. So that just gives you some visibility into what Sage or real estate shows as well. You can drill down and have a lot of buttons here for open invoices, list of leases by customer or by tenant. You can print statements. You can also email requests for payment. Lease Center shows data as it relates to leases that are in Intacct Real Estate as well. So current, future leases. We can also see, a lot of visibility into what data may be on the lease in real estate as well. So for example, we have checklist items pulling from real estate that you can add to the lease. We have recurring charge listings. So if you have maybe a 5-year lease and you have escalations every year, you can see what that data is. You can see deposits on these leases. You can also add attachments. So dropping files onto this lease, and that shows up in the portal, and then we can also push that to real estate as well. Or if you want to view any attachments that you have. And we can see open invoices specific to this lease. This sync button is here in case you find that you need to manually sync. We sync on a schedule. Anytime a lease is added in real estate, it syncs automatically. But you can also, if you have permissions, you can sync at any time. So these are current and future leases. We have canceled leases. We have a grid and calendar view of any lease starts, leases that are starting. Same with lease ends. So you can drill down on the 31st. We have 2 that are ending, on this 31st for this property. You can also send reminders on lease ends as well. You have a Gantt chart for those leases. And lease insurance. Lease insurance is entered in Sage Intacct Real Estate, and we just sync with that information. We can also send reminders to your property managers that leases are expiring in 90 days, for example. and then they can follow up with tenants at that point. This is old data, so all these have expired. Jumping into applicants, these are a way to track applications or send an application to a potential tenant, picking a property, entering their name, sending them a link. When they click on that link, they would be able to gather that information, enter their application information. I'm going through here pretty quick, but you get the idea. Saving that data, uploading any attachments that are needed, and you can, subscribers can decide what kind of information they may need. And then it's submitted and goes through an approval process or review process. Coming soon will be a applicant or tenant screening, not available yet, but that will be available where you can send this out, request a screening package, and then decide who's going to pay for it. And then we'll work with a tenant screening company to provide that information. Moving on, we have inspection. So you can manage any kind of inspection templates. These would be for residential or commercial. So as many templates as you may need, and they're pretty generic or very flexible in that you can do a lot of different different types of templates. So in this case, it's a 2-bedroom. We have areas or rooms in this case, and then we have items within those rooms, adding as many areas, items as you may want. And then you can use those templates as you do a new inspection. So let's say we want to do an inspection on that property. We'll assign this to a demo user. We'll start from a template from that 2-bedroom, and we'll go ahead and start this now. So it pulls in the areas and the inspection items from that template, and you can go through and going through all these different rooms or areas or items and marking if you have any deficiencies. Maybe the doors are fine, there's a hole in the window, going through this process, bad carpet, appliances are okay. And then you can add additional information for those items you need to follow up on. For example, there is a crack in the window. If you know how much it is to repair, you can add that here. Take an image, upload an image, use your camera roll if you're on a phone or a tablet, and then you can save that. So as you complete these inspections, if you have any deficiencies, you can choose to create a work order for those deficiencies. That will send an email. We'll create this service request, mark this as completed. So these are now in the completed area. And then we can move on to that service request to complete the task of all those deficiencies. So this is follow-up items from that inspection on that property for this unit. I'll jump into this. Service requests can be requested from their tenants, your customers, as well as do an internal. So if you have a concierge service, for example, in an apartment building, a retirement home, and they can enter a service request on your behalf, that would be an internal. Otherwise, it would be a tenant type where they have requested service. You have some communications with your tenants. So this is just comments on this service request, or maybe it's a question back and forth. We can send a notification to the tenant, or we can just add this to the conversation. So adding that conversation, you can always see this. I'm super user account. That's why it says me. Obviously, the tenant would be responding from their account. Those tasks that were deficiencies from the inspection show up here. You can assign these tasks to different people. Let's say this one's due on the 31st at 12 o'clock. That's fine. And then we'll just update that. Assign them as many as you want, and then they show up on that user's task, open tasks menu, so they can see what they need to work on. You can assign, also we have internal notes. These are not visible by the tenant, so not visible to tenant. just to keep track of any notes that you may want. And then finally, we have an audit log of everything that's going on. On this work order, service work order, you can assign this to someone. This is different. This is assigning the entire work order in case you didn't have any additional tasks on here. We'll add this to the conversation, but we're not going to send a notification. So updated the audit log. We've assigned this to the demo user with priority. We have entry instructions, any type of information. And finally, we can just schedule this out. I'm not going to do this. We can mark it as follow-up or marking on waiting for parts, for example, or we can mark it as completed. And we'll say this is completed on today. All right, that should take us back to our main page, and that will show up underneath our completed service requests. All my open tasks are here. Let me jump into Receivable Center. So this is really where you're going to live for doing research on who owes what for tenant payments or for customer payments. We have a list of all of our open invoices. Again, this syncs automatically with Sage Intacct. So for example, when you generate your rent roll in Sage Intacct Real Estate, it creates a order entry in Sage Intacct, which also creates an AR invoice in accounts receivable, and that shows up here automatically. You can choose based on how you want the system to work. Any new invoices can be emailed automatically. Or if you choose to not do that, you can send statements to the customer. So invoices look like this. Let me just show one here for this tenant. By default, we can have custom reports for different invoice formats. This is just a generic invoice. This has had a payment already on it from Sage Intacct. So you get the description of your rent. There are links to pay on all of the invoices as well as all the statements. So a customer can, if we email this invoice out, they can click on the link to log in and pay. So these are open invoices. Obviously, this is old information. You have open invoices aged out, so you can concentrate on those that are most important to you. You can sort these grids by the amount due, what's current, what's over 120. Deal with the highest balance. At first, prioritize your collections activities if you have any. But you can do a lot of actions on here. So we can see invoice items. You can go to an invoice detail page. You can send this invoice. This is like an on-demand sending. You can also, and I'll get into this later, but you can also set automatic reminders that sends the invoice as well. Like at 5 days or 10 days old, or 30 days after they're due or after they're created. Very robust reminder system. But these are just on-demand sending reminders. You can view, you see invoice activity, much like audit activity against that invoice. And finally, you can view attachments if you have any. We can also add attachments as well. By clicking here, this would be like ancillary activity or ancillary information on this invoice. Real estate tax bills for tenants, utility charges, for example. So you can drop those on there, and this customer tenant has full visibility into that. You can also, if you decide not to send your open invoices, you can send statements instead. Let me pull up the same tenant here. So these are based on not only statements, but they're also based on individual invoices that are out there. So I'm going to print this statement to show you what this looks like. If you decide to send these out, obviously this has all of their open items on this statement. Still has that link to pay, to make a payment, QR code in case they use their phone and log in. And finally, if you want them to mail checks, you can put the remittance address here. But these statements can be sent out automatically, or you can go through a process of saying, I want to send all these statements maybe for a given posted date. We'll say we'll send all these. Well, there's only one, but you get the idea. This will email those out with by sending a statement template. So that statement template can look like this. And then you can manage this every time, each batch that you send out. Maybe it's for a different month. You want to put a different note specific to who you're sending this to, you can do that. Now, when a tenant, so here's the reminders. So in case you want to send automatic reminders, you can say when an invoice hits 10 days from the invoice date, we're going to send an email to the customer. We're going to CC somebody. The reply to would be your email. This is a payment reminder from your company name. And this is what's in the email, the body of the email. These are called tokens, and they will be replaced with customer information and invoice information. We'll send an invoice copy and a link to pay in the invoice. So in the email. So in the email, they get a link. They can a couple clicks. They can just pay the invoice without having to log into the portal, or they can click to log in. So we can save that. It'll be saved in here. That will be, on the 10th day after the invoice date, automatic reminder. Now, the customer or tenant, when they log in, let me pull this over. This is an incognito window, so I'm logged into someone else. So this is as a user or a tenant user, so they don't see all the different menu items. They just see what they can see. In this case, I have multiple units based on my customer or email address, so I could switch between different customers. Test environment, this probably won't happen in the live environment. But that customer can print their instruction manual in case they need to. They can print their statement, set their preferences, and then they can make a payment across multiple invoices. They can see their active leases and agreements. In this case, I have 4, and they can drill down into these leases as well to see information. So for example, lease dates, start dates. If you decide, here's the open items specific to this lease right now, current balance, tenant ledger. If you have attachments, either that you've uploaded from this portal or from from Sage Intacct Real Estate, they will show as well. We sync that information. If you have insurance on this lease from real estate, it shows up here as well. And finally, they can request service on this lease. So this would be obviously a tenant-based request for this property on this unit. And then we specify, or we add the email address, multiple. You can have as many email addresses as you want as to who gets the service requests based on the property. So one property may go to one email address, another property may go to another. We set that up in company settings. So this would send an email to that property manager or whoever needs to do the work to manage that when these get sent. So let me jump back into the home page. So I'm just going to hit all these tabs, and then we can kind of detail what they can do. So they can see all their invoice or their active leases. Open invoices, they can see these. They can see, and they can print a statement. They can make a payment one at a time on these invoices, or they can pay multiple. They can see open items. These are invoice item level detail. These are kind of summary at the invoice level. They can see all their paid invoices, print that invoice, or see any attachments that have been added. They can also see an invoice page, which kind of shows the same information as well. Let me jump into that. Invoice detail page. This is paid. Obviously, this is the total amount. This is the balance. These are the line items on this. If there's any attachments, you could see them here. And then tracking activity, any reminders, smart events when we added this from Sage Intacct. Portal payments, if they've made any payments through this web portal, they would show up here. They can print a receipt. They can manage their payment methods, ACH, credit, debit card. Adding payment methods. Service requests, same thing. We already went through this. And they can also add collaborators. So if they have a roommate spouse situation that they want to be able to log in and see this customer homepage, then they can invite them, and they will have access to this portal. So on each lease agreement, they can set different preferences. So for example, maybe if they have more than one lease, this isn't typical, but it's complicated or sophisticated enough that you can have payment preferences at the lease level. So in this case, for this lease, we want to pay the outstanding amount from this payment account, and we can add another one if we need to. First day of the month, beginning December 1st. And we can save that. Other options are fixed amount, where they specify I only want to pay $100 out of this account on the first day of the month. Or the other option is a manual preference, where they're going to log in and pay every month, whatever amount that they want to pay. I'm not going to save that. Then as they make their payment, they can go through that process. So, and then they can also add different payment methods as well. You know, specific to the location or the lease, they can add a payment method. Credit card, ACH, they're your options. If they're making a payment, that's what it looks like. They'll just go through this process. I'll make a partial payment on this. An important thing to note, when a payment is made, it updates Sage Intacct with that invoice payment. So for example, we have an amount to pay of $11,000. I want to pay $2,500. Let me save that. I'll make that payment. Because I have used or added payment methods, I can go through an express checkout where I can just use one of my saved accounts. Or if I need to add another payment method, I can add another payment method. I'm just going to use this one. I don't think this, a couple of these may throw an error. Hopefully that's not this one. All right, that's a successful payment. So there's my receipt. I can, here's my reference number. I can rate my experience. I try to get a feedback loop with tenants, with customers, on what I can make better. I always want to make a better experience if I can. They can print their receipt. They can go back to their homepage. I'm going to go back to the homepage. You'll notice that the payment that we just made on this invoice has now been updated. It updated Sage with that payment, marked it as, you know, partially paid, obviously, because we have a balance due. So you're always in sync. We don't have to manually add any deposits or apply payments, because we know how to apply the payment based on what the tenant said. Let me close this. If you have, you have Payment Center, which is where all of your payments and your deposits will flow into. So visibility into payments across all of your merchant accounts, all your properties. And you can see the status of all your payments. Succeeded, pending, did we update Sage with that information? If not, why not? And then we can try to push this payment back through to Sage, or we can manually apply it. You have reports, payment activity, fee activity, payment details. You have, so payments are payments that customers have made. Payouts are deposits to your account, and you can see details on which customers have paid. And run reports on each, you know, payment, deposit report, reconciliation report for each one of these. Finally, you have visibility into your customer payment preferences across the board. So for each customer, whether it's an auto pay, fixed amount, or a manual, you can see that across the board to be able to, you know, better support your customers or your tenants. Company settings is where you can specify where you'll add merchant accounts. You have global settings on where do we, you know, do I need to update my logo? Who's support? What kind of currencies do we operate in Canada or US? Are we allowing credit and ACH? And then just some general preferences, showing lease information, service requests, lease insurance. So you can specify kind of how you want your tenants to see other onboarding templates for onboarding your customers. And finally, You can set default location settings. So let me jump in here real quick. We can activate locations. These are different entities within Sage Intacct. So you can turn them on or off, whether or not you want to manage those payments or see those locations in all of your menus. For those that we have activated, we set preferences in this manner. We have a merchant account. Are we going to, for this property, are we going to accept service requests? Who gets the email? We're accepting payments. Which merchant account are we going to use? Are we going to add any type of convenience fee to cover cost of processing? In this case, we're adding a convenience fee, 3% on credit card, $2 ACH, but you can manage that. Any income accounts or contra expense accounts for income, convenience fee income, or fee expenses can hit this account. And just a note to show to your tenants full visibility into, you're gonna have these convenience fees on your payments. And finally, when we update Sage, where do we want to update? Do we want to hit the bank account or an undeposited account? If we hit the bank, which bank account do we want to hit? And that happens as the tenant makes their payment. Enter remittance addresses here, and then from address in case it's different on each statement or invoice. Onboarding customers is very fast and easy. That's not much data in here, but you would have all of your customers with emails in here. And then you just basically onboard them. You have to have an email to be onboarded, but you would, click this button, show them a default template, and then register the user, send an onboard email. We can also invite them to register themselves, or you can just add them as a user. To help, you can also see collaborator users or view all the users on here. We can also send password resets, just kind of general user management. And finally, you can impersonate a user or a tenant, so you can log in and see what they would see if they log in. That is just about everything. I hope this has been helpful. Please work with, you can contact me directly, work with your Sage partner. If you need a further, deeper dive into more of these features, I'm happy to help. Thank you for watching.